Hive Galaxy is a reminder that this is a sequel to the Sandbox titles. I think it's good that they made it the second course in the game. Good Egg Galaxy was a good introduction to how everything's changed in outer space, and Hive kinda gives you that sandbox aesthetic. As soon as a player sees the opening intro cinematic, they might get flashbacks to something like Womp's Fortress, for example. Just a big sandbox floating in outer space, with a clear path that if a player were to follow, they could move upwards. It's also fun to look at. Up to this point, everything felt dark and lonesome. Even the Star Festival was taking place at night. But over here, you got the blue skies, sun shining, the grass is nice and green, and there's even a little waterfall. Your first mission is B Mario Takes Flight. The camera will go through a little alcove and pan over to a giant bumblebee sitting out in the distance. Now to once again harp onto the similarities of the old games, just like we did in Mario Sunshine, we have to now figure out how to make it towards the goal that the camera is panning towards. For the most part, the path to follow is simple. It's a brown dirt road directly ahead of you. You'll notice some bumblebee NPCs along your way, patches of grass, and piranha plants. There are also some of those boulders that you're meant to dodge, and if you make your way up to the top, you'll see one of those coins that creates a chain of collectibles. However, this time, grabbing that coin does not unlock collectibles, it unlocks the B Mario power-up. The power-ups in Mario Galaxy vary in their function as well as their application. Unlike the invisible caps in Mario 64, not all of them are timed. However, some of them are, most famously the Fire Flower and the Ice Flower, but the Bee Mushroom is not. That being said, the power-ups here are also very situational. Most of them only exist in one or two galaxies tops. They are pretty context sensitive, and only really serve a purpose for the specific objective you're collecting them for. In that regard, they're less power-ups and more stage gimmicks. I've seen many people criticize this element. I think people just want to collect a power-up and be able to take it with them wherever they go, but I also understand why that hasn't been applied in these games. Now granted, future 3D titles will have that application, but those more pure platformers are also designed around that. One thing I will note is that it is very fun to use these power-ups, so I do think it's kinda lame that as soon as you start to enjoy it, you basically don't see it again. But in fairness, they do bring back other power-ups with their own types of gimmicks, so it makes it a bit more forgivable. They went for the quantity over the quality approach, but they also technically did not sacrifice the quality here. They just didn't really super expand on it. Anyway, B Mario allows you to fly for a bit, you have a stamina meter and when it runs out you gotta land on the floor again. You also become lighter on your feet so you can land on flower petals and clouds, which you would otherwise fall right through. Also, you can do a Spider-Man crawl on the side of walls that have honeycombs on them. Taking damage or running into water will make you lose the power-up. This power-up gets a lot of points for me just for how adorable Mario looks in his little bee costume. Also, I love the bee mushroom. It looks like something that would be fan-made. But don't worry, I'll do my best to not get sucked into a crazy discussion on power-ups like I did during the Mario Kart series. In any case, when you grab the coin, the bee mushroom will be available on the lower section of the map, and you're able to jump down there and fly your way up to the little alcove. At the end of the alcove, there's a little stump you can fall through. You'll go down a slide and you'll make it to a more focused platforming section. This is the portion where you learn that you can jump on these flowers, and also where you'll figure out that running on honey will slow you down. Once you make it to the launch star, you more or less have to figure out how to get to the flower petals above you, so hopefully you'll notice a little flower that you can jump on the stem and swing your way upwards. After that, it's pretty simple hovering and platforming. Just gotta make sure you dodge the water lest you lose your power up and have to start over. The next segment is where you traverse along the wall. It's a very simple Spider-Man style climb, but you'll also face some more complicated versions of this challenge later on. It might take some people to get used to jumping on and off of these honeycombs, but that's a discussion for later. When you make it to the top, you find a queen. She asks if you're a physician because apparently she's itchy, at which point you're meant to jump on her and crawl all around her, collecting the star sections that are stuck around her body. Once you get all 5, a launch star will spawn, and who should you run into other than Captain Toad? He notifies you that him and his brigade were able to escape Peach's castle when Bowser attacked, but along with Luigi they all got lost. And then he says that he found a power star and he hands it over to you. Once this objective is done, there is a new section on the map where the Toads sit, but we can go through that when we discuss the Comet Observatory. The next star in Hive Galaxy is Trouble on the Tower. Just like Womp's Fortress, a tower has suddenly appeared. Also, I think it's neat that for the second star, there will be some minor changes, random obstacles in the map, but for the most part it's pretty similar. The alcove is now blocked off so you can't access that area too. But if you're curious enough to ground pound the little concrete platforms, you'll unleash a vine that allows you to swing to the other side of the stage. Continue along your path, jump on a few more springs, and you'll slowly make your way up to the top of the stage. Along the way, you'll probably have to figure out how to use the backflip or the side flip or the wall jump too. Just a quick way to get newcomers acclimated with Mario's moveset. Once you get to the launch star, you'll be sent off to outer space, and you get to go through some planetoids more similar to what you experienced in Good Egg Galaxy. The cool thing here is figuring out that when you get to the end of one, if you jump up and do a quick spin, the gravity of the next platform will take over. As you advance, you'll take on some wigglers, you'll get an invincibility star, which by the way is the first invincibility power-up that we've gotten since Mario 64. That's of course assuming you count the invisible cap and the metal cap as invincibility power-ups. But yeah, now you get to run around and wreak havoc on all of these piranha plants. Eventually, jumping through the stump will drop you all the way back down to the main stage. And what's left is your actual traversal up the tower. This segment mostly entails more focused and streamlined platforming, some of that traditional stuff including platforms on windmills. Awaiting you at the top is a boss fight against the Mandibug, although technically you have to kill the smaller one on its back in order to start the actual boss fight. Quick ground pound to the back and you get your next power star. And we can swing right into the third mission of the Big Bad Bugaboom. Now the stage is littered with Mandibugs, and in general everything is a lot more lively, where in comparison the first objective felt empty, which I think is a nice way to ease players into the game. You'll notice a pipe that spits out bubbles as well as an arrow pointing to the up left, and when you stand in front of that bubble shot you'll be sent soaring to the other side. I know this is simple, but I like it because it changes up how you traverse on each of the stars. Earlier on, to move to the other side, we had to swing on a vine, so this allows new routes to be taken even though it's the same stage, which in my opinion was implemented to avoid people complaining that you take the same route over and over again like you did in previous games. And there's a whole separate discussion that could be had in regards to that, but I think the previous games, and specifically Mario 64, needed those routes to be taken multiple times in order to get better at the game. In this case, it would probably feel a bit redundant. Still, when you make it to the other side, you'll see another one of those mushrooms that'll make your health go up to 6, as well as an area below to collect the Bee Mario power-up. Once you get Bee Mario, if you run through the alcove, Queen Bee will notify you that the neighbors are causing problems. Presumably, she's talking about the Mandibugs. She gives you a launch star and it takes you over to a new planetoid, and you have your actual boss fight against the Bugaboom. It turns out the Mandibug before for the first star was more of a mini-boss, if you will. This one is more traditional. It flies in a circle dodging bombs. You're meant to find a way to hover over it and ground pound on its back. In order to gain elevation, you might have to jump onto the honeycombs that are on the tree. The first 2 hits are pretty simple, but on the third hit, the Bugaboom starts to go a lot faster and it starts to fly on its side so that you can't ground pound on its back. I didn't really get hit or anything, but it took me a few attempts to actually strike the back. I think with the amount of times I missed, this was the first semblance of a true challenge that I got since I started this game. And even then, I wouldn't even say it's hard, it's just that everything before was laughably easy. But once you do get that third ground pound in and you defeat the Bugaboom, you collect the third and final main star for this level. Just like with Good Egg Galaxy, we'll have to wait for the comet and the hidden star to be available to collect. And when the comet does show up, it's a cosmic comet in orbit. The cosmic comets consist of races against Cosmic Mario. I kind of view these as a mishmash between the races against Il Piantissimo, as well as the Shadow Mario challenges in the previous game. And I would say they are equally as easy as they were in the previous games. But despite being afraid to recycle old talking points, I do think these challenges offer players a chance to get better equipped with the movement of Mario, being able to both move around faster as well as get used to using some of the more advanced techniques. The only real downside here is that Mario Galaxy is a really good game. I feel like when someone's playing Mario 64 or Mario Sunshine, they kind of have to get used to how to get around. But Galaxy is just so foolproof and intuitive that sometimes these minor challenges might feel a bit boring. And I only say that because if you were to compare Galaxy with Odyssey, for example, you wouldn't feel Mario controls that much different. But there is a bit of a learning curve if you jump back to the prior games, and it's mostly due to Mario's sensitivity in his turns. All of this is to say is that I think everybody could have benefited from these types of races in the earlier games, whereas I think the benefit here is mostly towards newcomers to this franchise. Which is totally fine, Mario should be accessible to everyone. And if you're a veteran player, just try more fun maneuvers to get through it, or speedrun. Also, this is not really that big of a deal, but I absolutely love the ninja run starting pose that Mario has before these races start. In this race specifically, you just simply follow the arrows They'll take you through the alcove and down the slide. I like that they throw in these old school blocks along your route in areas where you were supposed to be using B Mario, but as long as you keep moving along and don't make too many mistakes, eventually you'll get to the star and collect it. And finally, much like back in Good Egg Galaxy, the hidden star here is a Luigi star. This one is a little bit more fun to look for because it's a bit more obscure. The photo provided to you is pretty clear that Luigi is somewhere in Honey Hive Galaxy on a tree, but realistically players would not have traversed this entire section yet, so this might be the first time they're able to really do a proper search of the level. And I think levels that are designed like this are worth going on at least one scavenger hunt for, even if it is an objectively pretty simple scavenger hunt to go through. You should be able to eventually find Luigi once you get to one of the top platforms, and I will say I appreciate that they have him hidden on the other side of the tree so that you can't really see him until you get up there. Also, I think it was hilarious that he was hiding on the tree from a bug, and the fact that you basically have to hit him to get him off the tree. But anyway, once you do bring him down, he will give you the power star, and you'll have collected all 5 of the stars in this stage, with the final one being the purple star that you collect at the end game. All in all, I think the stage is very memorable. A large portion of that might be due to the fact that B Mario is super unique, but I think in any other type of Mario game this would be considered the first level. This is the green grassland stage that you're meant to start on, your Bob-omb Battlefield, your Bianco Hills. The aesthetics and the simplicity are all there. I understand why they decided to start with Good Egg Galaxy. I think they really wanted to have a stage in outer space. But the one thing that personally appealed to me about Honey Hive Galaxy is how familiar it felt. When I got here, I felt like I was in a 3D Mario level. So as cool as I thought all of the gimmicks of Good Egg Galaxy were, and how beneficial I think that stage was to set the game up, I think they were very smart to bring things back down to earth with this one. A much more familiar setting with much more familiar challenges, and while I might not necessarily consider this one of the best stages in the game, it's definitely one that I always appreciate revisiting. But I think that's enough discussion here. Let's head over to Space Junk Galaxy.